Hey y'all, it's Mary Mubiel, the Autistic Astrologer. So today I'm just lighting some incense. Today, I'm going to take a look at the upcoming December cosmic update, specifically focused on the moon moves. So if you like this information and you want to have a deeper breakdown week by week or day by day, be sure to check the different tiers. So these moon moves and special cosmic updates come to the pond and to the lake. And then the sea gets a much more in-depth kind of breakdown of the day by day and what's going on. So if you like that breakdown and you like to have that, I know I released it to all tiers at the end of November. So just to get that like more consistently, you would just up your tier to the C, which gets all of those deeper breakdowns. So this is really just going to be highlights of this month and what's happening, and talking a little bit about the moon and what the moon's going to be doing. And then obviously we will also have the monthly moon gathering that's going to be available to the sea and to the lake tiers this month. And there's also going to be a Venus retrograde planetary check-in that's going to be coming to the sea. And I believe I'm going to make that also available to purchase outside of Patreon, but it'll go to the C tier like the normal planetary check-ins do. So that being said, this is kind of more of an overview, a little bite into some of the main events that are coming up for this month. So one of the things that I've already talked about on my social media pages today is that December 1st starts with Neptune turning direct, and it's going to station direct at 20 degrees. So Neptune is an outer planet. So anytime the outer planets station to shift and move in a different direction, they're not really moving in a different direction. It's the way that we see the planet from Earth. It looks like it is stopping and then shifting direction. But so anyway, when that happens with outer planets, it takes a lot more energy and a lot more force and a lot more time. So when we talk about like Mercury retrograde and Venus retrograde, it's a much quicker shift than when we talk about Neptune retrograde or Pluto retrograde. So Neptune is stationing, and when a planet stations, it sits and it gets stronger and more powerful. And so Neptune is very powerful here at 20 degrees. Depending on where this hits in your chart, so this is going to hit mutable signs with placements between like 18 degrees and like 25 degrees, because the retrograde for Neptune is 20 degrees to 23 degrees. And so if you're mutable signs, Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, or Sagittarius, where you have placements within those degrees of mutable signs, you're going to feel this energy a lot more than other people. But over the time as it moves through its shadow and into March 2022, we're going to start feeling kind of more understanding around what it is that Neptune has been churning for us, right? And it will continue to show us where we may be being fed lies, or there may be illusions, or there may be confusion, or we're seeking clarity in certain things. That fog begins to lift, that confusion begins to become clarity as Neptune moves through its shadow phase and gets into new territory, which would be 24 degrees of Pisces, which happens again in March of 2021. So that's the main thing that happens as we like move into December. We get this like shift, this jolt. Neptune's heavy, so you might be tired, you might be extra confused or extra foggy within these days. So, giving yourself space and grace and compassion if you're additionally tired, if you need a nap, if you need to take some time, or you can't like get your thoughts exactly right or something because of the confusion, the lack of clarity that also comes with Neptune. So that's all very valid as we moved into December. The big hit for this first week is on the 3rd and the 4th. We have the eclipse happening in Sagittarius. It's a new moon. So when we talk about new moons, we want to obviously talk about newness and planting seeds. But because this is an eclipse, and because it's the last eclipse on the Gemini Sagittarius axis, this is also an ending, and it could be great endings and multiple endings. And as we talk about moving out of this year and into 2022, there are a lot of endings happening for people. And so this eclipse although it's a new moon, is also very much tied into endings. And we're going to get into that more, in a little while. But so we have that happening too in the first week. And then the other thing that we have major happening is Venus is getting ready to start its retrograde. So it's already into Capricorn and into the shadow period. It entered the shadow period at the end of November. And so we're already starting to feel some of that churning that Venus is doing. And it's really getting stirred up with Pluto. So this makes it even more intense. And we're going to do a really big deep dive into the Venus retrograde cycle with the planetary check-in with the C this month. So if you're interested in that, check out the C tier on my Patreon. So that's also happening. And Venus and Pluto are really together in this intense kind of underworld space, in the shadows together, if you will, all of December. And so that can be really intense. That can be really activating, triggering, traumatizing, even in certain spaces. So that's another thing that's happening. And then the other main thing that's happening in December is that we have our final square between Saturn and Uranus. So again, I talk about Saturn and Uranus. I've talked about them all year. It's one of the main aspects that I've been tracking throughout the year. And now we're at our third and final one. There's a lot to say about the Saturn Uranus square. And, I have a general 2021 themes cosmic update that I link often to kind of like get you a little bit more aware of what's happening with Saturn and Uranus. So I'll link that here as well. But we're going to go into it a little bit more again as we get closer to this time. But basically, this is a lot of tension. This is tension around the past versus the future. This is tension around feeling constricted and wanting to feel liberated. It's these very polar opposite extremes that we see in the collective, but also many of us are seeing in our personal lives as well. And we're going to feel that tension starting to get a little bit tighter, starting to get a little bit heavier as we move into the end of December. And then we hit that final square exactly on the 23rd and the 24th of December, right around the holidays. And so there's a lot of tension that's happening. So normally when we talk about like an astrological month, there's one or two big things that we hit on. But this month has a lot. And so recognizing that with any planetary transits, anything that's happening in the skies, this isn't always necessarily going to hit each person, right? So some of them are going to be more specific to your chart and hit your chart in different ways, which is why it's so important to understand your own natal chart as you get into understanding astrology. So, for instance, the eclipse that's happening at the beginning of this month on the 3rd and 4th of December, it's happening in Sagittarius and Gemini on that axis. So this is going to hit mutable signs really heavy, but they might be feeling that and not necessarily feeling the Venus and Pluto stuff. Whereas Venus and Pluto is happening in Capricorn, which is a cardinal sign. So cardinal signs, especially mid to later degree cardinal sign placement charts, are really going to be feeling this Venus and Pluto, but they may not be feeling the eclipse as much. And then we also have Saturn and Uranus happening in fixed signs. So people with heavy fixed signs and chart influence might be feeling the Saturn Uranus and not be feeling the Venus and Pluto, or not be feeling the eclipse. And then some of us are feeling all of it, right? And we're holding all of these in different containers in different parts of our life and really trying to navigate really, really difficult times. And so again, it's really going to depend on where these things are hitting our chart. And then at the end of the month, we also have, so this month is kind of like bookended by Pisces energy, right? So we have Neptune that's stationing direct at 20 degrees. It stays at 20 degrees all through December. It's just grinding away at that part in your chart. And then at the end of December, we have Jupiter that's ingressing back into Pisces. So it went into Pisces for a little bit during the summer months in the United States, winter months in the southern part of the world. But this is, Pisces moving, or Jupiter moving back into Pisces at the end of the month really does set off a new kind of vibe in the collective. And then it inches, Jupiter is in domicile or at home in Pisces, and Neptune is also at home in Pisces. And so they're going to come into a conjunction in April of 2022. And so this ingress of Jupiter into Pisces is a big shift. We're not going to feel it automatically because we have other things happening in the sky that are really tense during those same times. But this is a big shift. And again, we're going to get into that much more in detail in the weekly updates that come to the sea if you're interested. So again, my main point here is there's a lot of shit happening. And so figuring out, first of all, like what in your chart, what qualities or modalities rule your chart? Do you have a lot of fixed energy? Do you have a lot of cardinal energy? Do you have a lot of mutable energy? And really quickly, the mutable signs are going to be Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. And then the cardinal signs are going to be Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. And then what one am I missing? The fixed energies are going to be Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. And so just figuring out like what energies rule your chart will help you understand which of these planets and which of these transits are hitting you more, and kind of how to navigate that in your own chart as well. And obviously, if you have any questions about this, being on my Patreon, part of being on my Patreon is you get access to me and asking questions. So if you're not sure and you want to drop your chart in the comments, or you want to shoot me a message with your chart and just ask me kind of an idea of your chart in that way, like is it more fixed or mutable, or how that looks, I'm always open to helping you navigate that space. Because anytime you watch one of these videos, especially one of the videos that comes out to the pond, the lake, and the sea, I want to make sure that you understand what we're talking about. So if I continue to say something that you don't understand, please, please, please feel free to ask me. There are a lot of people that are new to astrology here. And so I want to make sure that you're following along and you're gaining information as you go. And it's not all just very overwhelming, right? Astrology can be overwhelming. It's a lot. And I never expect you to remember or to understand everything about astrology. Part of being here and part of what I love to do for the community is answer those questions and help guide you in this process. So if you have a question about something, you probably aren't the only one with that question. And so it sometimes helps me gauge what videos to put out, right? If a lot of people don't understand the modalities and the elements and how they line up to the planets and the signs, then maybe that would be a good thing for me to put out on my Patreon so that you can have that as a reference. So anyway, my point is, if you have questions, please feel free to ask me. That not only helps me, but it helps the other people in this community as well that may also have the same question, but just be hesitant to ask. So I always, always, always welcome that information. So those are the main things that's happening in December, like bullet points of what's happening, right? So there's other things that are happening with ingresses and planets changing signs. That's what an ingress is when a planet moves into a new sign. So on the 13th, we have 2 sign ingresses. So we have Mars moving out of Scorpio and into Sagittarius, which is it's the last planet that's in Scorpio. So we move that into Sagittarius, and it's just another like breath of fresh air, kind of being able to like get our head above water. The thing is, Mars is very resourced in Scorpio. And so when it moves into Sagittarius, it can almost be like we get a horse really fired up and then we put blinders on it. And so it has no idea where it's going, and it might start to freak out and get a little chaotic, right? So that's kind of the energy when Mars moves into Sagittarius. On that same day, on the 13th of December, Mercury also moves into Capricorn. So there's this exchange of energy where Mars is moving out of a very internal sign of Scorpio, and it moves to a very external or extroverted sign of Sagittarius. And then Mercury is moving from the extroverted sign of Sagittarius into the very internal, very calculated, very I want to plan sign of Capricorn. And so there's an exchange of energy and a shift of energy that we'll feel around that time, again, depending on where all this stuff hits in your chart. And then the other thing we have in the middle of the month is the full moon that's happening in Gemini. This is not an eclipse, so we're actually out of eclipse season by this point. And this is a full moon in Gemini, and we're going to break that down a little bit more as we move forward. And that's going to be right around the time that we do our monthly moon gathering is going to be around the full moon. We're actually going to do a full moon kind of like meditation ritual, not a really long one, but that's going to be part of that moon gathering as well this month. So again, if you're interested in that, those go out to the lake and to the sea tiers for the monthly moon gathering. And then on the 19th, we have Venus actually stationing retrograde. And that's going to start that kind of process. And then on the 21st, it's the winter solstice or the summer solstice in the southern hemisphere. And that is when the sun moves into Capricorn. So again, another sign into Capricorn. And then we trickle into the final Saturn Uranus square at the end and Jupiter moving into Pisces. So again, a lot of stuff happening in the month of December. Can be a little bit chaotic, but again, depending on how it hits in your chart and how all that kind of goes. So what I do want to hit on here, because this is for all tiers, so I want to make sure that we do hit on the monthly moon moves for this first eclipse that's happening on the 3rd and the 4th of December, which is just this week. And so I wanted to make sure to touch on that. So this is an eclipse that has been happening now for a year and a half. So this is happening on the Gemini Sagittarius eclipse axis. And so what that means is there has been major shifts happening in that axis of your life, the houses that are ruled by Sagittarius and Gemini. And this is specifically going to be hitting signs that have a mutable rising, right? So if you are a Pisces rising, Gemini rising, Sagittarius rising, or a Virgo rising, this eclipse axis is hitting the angled houses in your chart, which is going to be the 1st house, the 4th house, the 10th house, missing one, or the 7th house. Those are the main angle houses. And so when the eclipse hits those, it often is a deeper, more intimate, more personal shift that we feel during that time. And so this is a time for you to look back like a year and a half of what's been coming up, right? So this is an eclipse, Gemini and Sagittarius. We had the last ones during Gemini season, just this last Gemini season. So like May, June, July. And this is tying in and wrapping up. This is the end, right? So even though it's a new moon, this is the end of this cycle. And so a lot of us are going to be feeling deep, personal, intense endings at this time. Again, specifically those that have mutable risings. So this began again like mid 2020 and has been kind of like happening with the eclipses since then. And so heavy mutable charts, specifically Sag, Gemini, Sun, Moon, Rising people, you're going to feel kind of a release from this cycle moving off of your main angles in your chart. And we're kind of like churning in. So this eclipse angle, the Gemini Sagittarius angle, is very mental. This is very much about our beliefs. This is very much about our mind, the way we process information, our connections, the way we communicate with other people, the way we understand the world, the values that we hold. And if you remember the moon gathering from last month, we started a new eclipse cycle in Sagittarius or in Scorpio and Taurus. And so shifting from Gemini and Sagittarius eclipses into Taurus and Scorpio eclipses, this is almost an intensification for the collective. So again, it's going to depend on where these hit in your chart, but for the collective, this is almost like an intensification of what we were mentally processing. Now it becomes physical with Taurus and it becomes intimate with Scorpio. And so, an intensification as we move forward, but a lot of mental work moving into this eclipse cycle of Scorpio and Taurus, putting even more emphasis on fixed charts and fixed signs and where we hold that energy within our charts, because the fixed energies are already getting hit with Saturn and Uranus. So anyway, there's a lot that we can say about this, but what I would say is this is a great time for you to check in your chart where Sagittarius and Gemini fall, what houses they rule, and to think back a year and a half into what has been coming up for you in those houses and what those houses rule. And you can find on one of the more recent posts that I made, there is a picture of all of the houses and kind of like what themes come with those specific houses. If you need me to drop that, just ask me in the comments, and I think I can post it there. But my point is taking a look at what cycles or what themes have been coming up for you in the last year and a half in those places in your chart, and what may be coming to an end. This is a great time with an ending of an eclipse to just continue like repeating the mantra to yourself that you're willing to release what no longer serves your highest good or your soul's best purpose, recognizing that when you say that, it might not be things that are comfortable, right? And that's when we decide if we want to sacrifice some of the things that we may enjoy, or some of the things that may bring us comfort in some way, but aren't necessarily good for us, good for our process, or you know, whatever that looks like. And sometimes things, you know, start to come clear that we need to let go of them, and that can be a difficult process. So obviously the invitation to say that mantra, I want you to check in with yourself and make sure that that feels right for you, because it can really be jolting when things start to come up as like, oh, this isn't good for me and I have to really address that now. And that can be difficult, obviously, right? So, but with this being the last eclipse of this cycle, this is, again, being Sagittarius and Gemini. This is our connections. This is our community. This is our beliefs. This is our understanding of religion, of philosophy. You know, all of these very mental processes come into play with this, and then just deepening that understanding by tying it into your chart and seeing how that plays out there. So yeah, so that's pretty much what I wanted to go through for this cosmic update today. So please let me know if you have any questions in the comments. As always, I will link the Saturn, Uranus, and 2021 themes video for you to go back and watch it if you're interested. If it's too much and you just have a question that you want me to answer for you, feel free to write it there and I will answer and spend as much time there as I am able. So, you know, never hesitate to ask me, and I will always like lay a boundary if I don't have time or space to do that, and lead you to a place where you can find that answer on your own until I have the time and space to kind of come back and process that with you. But you know, I'm honored to be here with you. Thank you all so much for coming into this space and trusting me with your energy. And I'm honored to provide any kind of support and resource that I can. So let me know if I can help you in any way. I look forward to hearing how this energy is working with you. Let me know in the comments how you're feeling, like what you're looking forward to in December, what you have questions about, what you're worried about, like anything you want to dump here. This is a place where you're welcome to do that. So thank you so much again for being here. I appreciate you all, and we will chat very soon.